It all started on a humid night in Puerto Rico, where the Love and Hip Hop Atlanta cast had gathered for what was supposed to be a relaxing getaway. The cameras were rolling, the drinks were flowing, and the ocean breeze carried an uneasy tension that no one could quite name. Kirk Frost and young Joc had been laughing just hours earlier at the poolside bar, trading jokes and clinking glasses. But somewhere between the second round of shots and a phone call that shouldn't have been answered, everything changed. Rumors had already been swirling that Kirk was hiding something from Rasheeda against some business trip that didn't add up. Some text that looked too personal. But what no one expected was that Joc would be the one to bring the truth out into the open, right there in front of everyone. Fans later said it felt like watching a slow explosion, one that started with a whisper and ended with flashing lights and handcuffs. The night began calmly enough. The group had gathered for dinner at a luxury beachfront villa. Rasheeda sat at the end of the table in a coral dress, scrolling through her phone, while Kendra and Joc exchanged quiet glances. Kirk looked distracted, sipping from his glass, checking his phone every few minutes. Production assistants could feel the tension. Something was about to break. "You think I don't see what's going on?" Joc suddenly said, his voice cutting through the laughter. Everyone turned. Kirk froze. The table fell silent except for the distant crash of waves. "You gonna tell your wife? Or should I?" Joc pressed, leaning forward. The crew members stopped moving. Cameras zoomed in. Rasheeda looked up slowly, her eyes narrowing. "What is he talking about, Kirk?" she asked, her tone calm but deadly. Kirk shifted, his fingers tightening around the stem of his glass. "Man, Joc, don't start with this tonight," he muttered, trying to laugh it off. But Joc wasn't backing down. "Nah, bro, not tonight, not after what I just saw." Kendra tried to pull Joc back, whispering for him to chill, but he shrugged her off. "Don't touch me, Kendra. I'm tired of covering for people. Everybody think I'm the messy one. But tonight, the truth coming out." He slammed his hand on the table, and the sound echoed through the room. Rasheeda stood up. Kirk followed, trying to calm things down, but the damage was done. The cameras caught everything, the confusion, the anger, the disbelief. Outside, the wind picked up, the palm trees swayed hard against the night sky. Someone from production tried to signal for a break, but the shouting only grew louder. "You gonna sit here and act like I didn't see you at that villa?" Joc yelled. Kirk's face turned red. "You trippin', Joc?" he shouted back. Rasheeda gasped. "Villa," she repeated. Her voice trembled, but her eyes burned. Then, in one chaotic blur, chairs scraped, drinks spilled, and the two men lunged toward each other. Crew members rushed in, but it was too late. The fight spilled onto the patio. Glasses shattered. Kendra screamed. Rasheeda tried to pull Kirk away, but he pushed her back by accident, and that only made it worse. "Don't touch me," she cried. "Both of y'all lost your minds." By the time the resort's security arrived, Kirk and Joc were still shouting, faces swollen, shirts torn. The police were called. Guests from nearby rooms gathered on balconies, filming everything. Fans online later said it was the most shocking love and hip-hop moment in years. When the flashing blue lights hit the courtyard, the entire scene looked unreal, like a movie no one could turn away from. Handcuffs clicked, voices broke, and Rasheeda collapsed into tears, while Kendra tried to reason with the officers. Nobody expected a simple vacation to end this way. Nobody thought friendship would dissolve into violence under the Puerto Rican moonlight. And yet, there it was, two men in cuffs, two women screaming, and the world watching. The night after the fight, Puerto Rico felt different. The air was still thick with tension, and the entire resort seemed to buzz with whispers. Producers had told everyone to stay in their rooms until things cooled off, but nobody was really resting. The sound of waves outside mixed with muffled voices and the occasional slamming of doors. Kirk sat on the edge of his hotel bed, staring at his swollen knuckles, his mind running in circles. His phone kept lighting up with missed calls from Rasheeda, but he couldn't bring himself to answer. Not yet. Not after what went down. Across the hall, Joc was pacing back and forth. Kendra sat on the couch, her hands pressed against her forehead, muttering under her breath. "I told you to let it go, Joc. I told you it wasn't your place," she said softly. Joc spun around, frustration spilling from his face. "Nah, you don't get it, Ken. He's been lying to her for months, acting like he's Mr. Faithful when I literally saw him at that villa with Jasmine. How am I supposed to just sit there and pretend I didn't see that?" Kendra's voice trembled. "You could have talked to him privately. You didn't have to make it explode like that in front of everybody. Now look at what's happened. Cops were here. The whole world saw it. It's gonna be everywhere." Joc rubbed his face, breathing hard. "It already is. They filming this. You think they won't air it? Man, this show lives for this type of chaos." Meanwhile, Rasheeda sat alone on the balcony of her suite, her eyes red from crying. She kept replaying the words over and over in her head. Fila. Jasmine Kirk. It was like every old wound had been ripped open again. She thought they had finally moved past that chapter. The scandal, the baby, the humiliation, and yet, here she was again alone, embarrassed, broken. Her phone rang again, this time a call from Carly read. "Girl, you okay?" Carly's voice came through the speaker, soft but urgent. Rasheeda hesitated before answering. "No, I'm not okay, Carly. I can't even think straight right now. Joc said something about Kirk being at a villa with Jasmine. Tell me that's not true." Carly sighed. "Listen, I don't know what's real and what's rumor, but people been talking, Sheeda. Somebody sent me pictures last week. I didn't even want to show you because I thought it was old. But now," her voice trailed off. Rasheeda's hand shook as she whispered, "Send them." A few seconds later, the photos came through, blurry, taken from a distance, but unmistakable. Kirk sitting on a patio with Jasmine, both laughing, drinks in hand. One of the pictures even showed them hugging. Rasheeda dropped her phone on the floor, staring into the night sky. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she whispered, "He really did it again." Back in Kirk's room, his phone buzzed again. This time, it was a message from production. "You need to talk to Rasheeda on camera tomorrow morning. Network wants a sit-down." Kirk exhaled deeply, running his hand over his face. He knew there was no escaping it now. Everything he had tried to keep quiet was about to blow wide open. The next morning, the cameras were rolling early. The producers had set up a meeting by the pool. A calm environment, they called it, though nothing about it felt calm. Kirk walked out first, wearing sunglasses to hide the dark circles under his eyes. Moments later, Rasheeda appeared, dressed in white, her face unreadable. They sat across from each other, a thick silence stretching between them. "So," she said finally, her voice low, "you want to tell me what's going on, Kirk?" Kirk hesitated. "Baby, it's not what Joc made it seem like." Rasheeda laughed bitterly. "Really? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks exactly like what it seems like. You in Puerto Rico, Jasmine? In Puerto Rico. Same villa, same week. You expect me to believe that's a coincidence?" "We were talking about business," Kirk said, fumbling for words. "She hit me up about some music stuff, and Rasheeda cut him off sharply. "Music stuff? Kirk, stop insulting my intelligence. Every time it's business, every time it's something innocent until it's not. I can't do this anymore." Her voice broke on the last words. Crew members exchanged uneasy glances. Kirk leaned forward. "Sheeda, you gotta believe me. I ain't out here playing you. Joc blew it up because he jealous. He always want attention." Rasheeda's eyes flashed. "Don't you dare make this about Joc. You the one who gave him the ammunition." Just then, Joc and Kendra arrived at the scene, escorted by producers who were clearly nervous about another explosion. "Nah, I need to speak," Joc said, walking right up. "Since everybody calling me a liar, let's get this straight." Kirk stood, his voice rising. "You already said enough. Joc, you wanna ruin lives for clout?" Joc pointed at him. "Clout? Man, please, you've been hiding too long behind that nice guy image. You think people don't know what you've been up to?" Kendra tried to hold Joc's arm, whispering for him to calm down, but Kirk had already stepped forward. "You wanna go again? You wanna do this right here?" he barked. Rasheeda shouted, "Stop it, both of you," but her words were drowned out by the chaos building again. Producers yelled for security, but by the time anyone reacted, Kirk shoved Joc, sending him stumbling backward. Joc came right back, swinging, but Kirk ducked, and the two locked up. Joc came right back, swinging, but Kirk ducked, and the two locked up, falling into a nearby chair. The sound of crashing glass filled the air. Kendra screamed. Rasheeda tried to pull Kirk off, yelling his name over and over. Finally, two security guards separated them, dragging them apart. Kirk's shirt was torn, Joc's lip was bleeding, and everyone looked stunned. "You really want this on camera?" Kirk shouted at the producers, his voice shaking with rage. "This what you wanted?" One of the producers muttered. "We didn't plan this. Man, y'all did." Rasheeda turned away, tears streaming down her face. "I'm done," she whispered, walking toward her room. "I'm done with all of this." Joc wiped his mouth and glared at Kirk. "Keep lying, bro. The truth gonna come out anyway." Kirk didn't answer. He just watched as Rasheeda disappeared inside, her white dress glowing against the sunlight, fading from view. The cameras zoomed in on Kirk's face, his expression caught between anger and regret. As the crew packed up their equipment, whispers filled the set. Everyone knew this wasn't over, not by a long shot. The villa, the photos, The accusations. It was all too real now. And with the footage already in the network's hands, the world was about to see every second of it. Later that evening, clips from the altercation started leaking online. Someone from the resort had filmed part of the fight on their phone and sold it to a gossip page. Within hours, hashtags like #KirkVsJOC and #Puerto Rico Meltdown were trending. Fans were losing their minds. Comments flooded in. Some defended Kirk. Others blamed Joc. But almost everyone agreed it was the most explosive moment in love and hip-hop history. By midnight, the video had millions of views. And as the world watched, Kirk Frost's reputation once again hung by a thread. The resort fell into a strange kind of silence after Rasheeda disappeared. The crew stopped talking, the palm trees swayed, and the only sound left was the ocean hitting the rocks. Kirk stood there for a long time, breathing hard, staring at the spot where she'd been standing. The adrenaline was gone, and all that was left was shame. He could still hear her voice echoing in his head, "I'm done with all of this." Those words cut deeper than any punch Joc had thrown. Production wrapped the scene, but nobody really left. Cameras were lowered, but the tension stayed heavy in the air. Joc sat off to the side, a towel pressed against his bleeding lip. Kendra was on the phone with someone from VH1, explaining the situation in whispers. No, they didn't plan this. Yes, security was there. No, it wasn't scripted. Her voice trembled as she said it, realizing this was about to blow up bigger than anything they'd filmed before. Kirk finally walked off, ignoring everyone calling after him. He took a back path toward the beach, away from the lights and the noise. The sky was dim now, the last of the sunset fading out. He sat down in the sand, his head in his hands. The salt in the air stung his bruised knuckles. He thought about calling Rasheeda again, but what could he say? Sorry again. That word had lost all meaning. Back in her room, Rasheeda was sitting on the edge of her bed, still in her white dress, staring blankly at the wall. Her makeup was smudged, but she didn't care. She could hear faint voices in the hallway, crew members, other castmates whispering, but she stayed still. Her phone buzzed again. It was an unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. A familiar voice came through. "Rasheeda, it's Jasmine. Please, can we talk?" Rasheeda's eyes went wide. "You have some nerve calling me right now." Jasmine's tone was shaky. "I didn't want any of this. I didn't even know Joc was gonna say something. Kirk told me it was business. That you knew that I knew." Rasheeda snapped, cutting her off. "Girl, are you really that dumb? Or do you think I am? You sitting in some villa with my husband, drinking and laughing like this man ain't already embarrassed me enough. Don't call me ever again." She hung up before Jasmine could respond. Outside, Joc was still pacing near the pool. Stevie J had arrived late that evening after hearing about the fight. He found Joc smoking near the bar. "Man, what the hell happened?" Stevie asked. Joc exhaled smoke, his jaw tight. "Bro, I didn't mean for it to go like that. I just couldn't sit there no more. Kirk been lying too long. I thought he changed, but he out here playing the same game." Stevie nodded slowly. "Yeah, but now you the one they gon' paint as the villain. You know how they edit this show, right? They'll make you look crazy." Joc laughed bitterly. "They always do. But this time I don't even care." The truth needed to come out. Meanwhile, back at production headquarters, the show's senior producer was reviewing the raw footage. "This is gold," one assistant whispered. "TV gold." The producer didn't even look up. "It's chaos, but it's real. We'll need to talk to legal though, there's police involved now." He leaned back in his chair, already imagining the headlines. Love and hip hop. Puerto Rico meltdown, 2 castmates arrested after explosive fight. Later that night, Rasheeda finally left her room. She put on a hoodie and walked down to the beach alone. The moon reflected off the water like a cracked mirror. She saw Kirk sitting in the distance, motionless. Part of her wanted to keep walking, but another part of her, tired, angry, heartbroken, walked toward him. "So this what we doing again?" she said quietly as she approached. Kirk turned, surprised. "Sheeda, please don't Sheeda me right now," she interrupted. "You said you changed. You begged me for another chance after Jasmine, after all that mess. And I believed you. I really did. And you out here meeting her again? In another country? On a trip with me?" Her voice cracked. Kirk stood up, reaching out, but she stepped back. "I swear it wasn't like that," he said. "She just wanted to talk. I ain't even stay long." Joc caught a piece of it and twisted it. Rasheeda shook her head. "You always got an excuse. You always halfway innocent in every story. But I'm the one left picking up the pieces." The sound of the ocean grew louder between them. Kirk's voice dropped low. "You think I wanted this to happen? I didn't even know she'd be here till I got that call. And yeah, I met her. I messed up even doing that. but I wasn't trying to disrespect you. Rasheeda folded her arms, her voice cold. You've been disrespecting me for years, Kirk. You just do it in different ways now. And you know what? Maybe Joc did me a favor. Maybe I needed to see that you'll never stop being who you are. She turned to leave, her footsteps crunching in the sand. Kirk watched her go, the waves crashing behind her like applause for an ending he never wanted. The next day, breakfast was tense. Everyone sat at separate tables. No laughter, no music. Production tried to film group scenes, but the cast barely spoke. Carly Red tried to break the silence. So, we not gonna talk about last night? Nobody answered. Joc was staring into his coffee. Kirk sat far across the patio, sunglasses on, face blank. Rasheeda didn't even show up. Then, out of nowhere, Erica Mena walked in. She wasn't even supposed to be part of the Puerto Rico trip, but word had gotten to her about the chaos. She slid into a chair next to Carly, grinning. What did I miss? I heard fists were flying and marriages were dying. Joc rolled his eyes. Man, ain't nobody got time for your messy energy today, Erica. She smirked. Oh please. I live for messy energy. Besides, I heard Rasheeda and Kirk are on the edge again. Same old story. She took a sip of her mimosa. And you, Joc, you got the cops called on you again. Kendra glared at her. Don't start, Erica. But Erica leaned in, unfazed. Girl, I'm just saying. Every time y'all go on a trip, somebody ends up in handcuffs. Y'all need therapy, not tequila. The cameras caught every word. An hour later, Kirk finally went to find Rasheeda. She was packing her bags. You leaving? He asked quietly. She didn't answer. Sheeda, please. Can we just talk before you go? She zipped her suitcase. Talk about what, Kirk? About how you embarrassed me again. About how Joc had to expose you before you told me the truth. Nah, I'm done talking. She pushed past him, dragging her luggage toward the door. He grabbed her hand gently. I love you, he said. She paused, eyes wet. You got a funny way of showing it. As she walked away, a producer caught the moment on camera. Rasheeda in tears, Kirk standing in the doorway, silent. It was raw, painful, and perfect television. Outside, the van waited to take her to the airport. Carly ran out to stop her. Girl, think about it. Don't make a big decision while you angry. Rasheeda shook her head. I'm not angry anymore. I'm just done. As the van pulled away, Kirk stood watching from the balcony, sunglasses hiding the hurt in his eyes. Joc came up behind him quietly. You happy now? Kirk said bitterly. Joc didn't reply right away. Nah, he said finally. Ain't nothing about this make me happy. I didn't want to destroy you, man. I just couldn't watch you destroy her again. Kirk turned slowly, his voice tight. You could have pulled me aside, bro, but you wanted an audience. You wanted to look like the hero. Nah, Joc said. I wanted the truth. He walked off, leaving Kirk standing alone. That night, the network issued a statement confirming the altercation and promising to address the incident responsibly in the upcoming episodes. But fans didn't wait. Online, the drama had become a wildfire. Twitter threads broke down the fight frame by frame. Instagram lives were flooded with theories. Jasmine's name trended again, and she even went live herself, crying, saying she never meant to ruin anything. But by then, nobody believed her. In Atlanta, back home, cameras followed Rasheeda as she arrived at the Frost Bistro. She walked in quietly, her staff watching with concern. She looked around the place she and Kirk built together. Every corner held memories, both good and bad. She sat at the bar, staring at the empty glass in front of her. The silence inside the restaurant was heavy. Mrs. Frost, one of the waitresses, asked softly, You okay? Rasheeda gave a small smile. No, but I will be. Meanwhile, Kirk was still in Puerto Rico, sitting by himself at the resort bar long after everyone had gone to bed. He ordered another drink, but barely touched it. In his head, he replayed every moment. The fight, Rasheeda's face, Joc's words. It all looped like punishment. He didn't even notice when security approached. Mr. Frost, one of them said, the police want to finish their report about last night. We need you to come with us. Kirk nodded slowly, standing up. As he walked away, the bartender whispered, Man, these love and hip-hop people always bring the storm. And just like that, the night that started with laughter ended again with flashing lights. Puerto Rico, heartbreak, and two men who once called each other brothers, now standing on opposite sides of a broken friendship neither of them could fix. Morning sunlight hit the Puerto Rico shoreline, but nothing about the new day felt peaceful. The resort was quiet, yet there was a strange weight in the air, like everyone was waiting for something else to go wrong. The crew had orders to resume filming, but most of them didn't even know where to start. Kirk hadn't come out of his room since the police left. And Joc had locked himself in his suite, ignoring producers and phones alike. Kendra had been crying all night. Rasheeda was already on a flight back to Atlanta, refusing to speak to anyone except her mother. The entire trip was supposed to be about reconciliation and bonding for the new season, but it had turned into a nightmare. Even off camera, the cast couldn't stop whispering about what went down. People were replaying videos from last night, editing slow-motion clips of the fight, adding captions, memes, and reactions. Social media was eating it alive. By the time morning came, Kirk's name was trending alongside Handcuffed and Cheater again. Inside the producer's office, phones were ringing nonstop. "We have to control the narrative," one assistant said. "We can't let this spin out of our hands." But the senior producer shook his head. "Control. This is the show. People love the chaos. This'll be the highest-rated episode of the season." He paused, sipping his coffee. "But we'll still need a damage control segment. I want Kirk, Joc, Rasheeda, and Kendra all in confessionals by tomorrow. If Rasheeda's already gone, fly a crew to Atlanta." Meanwhile, Kirk sat in his room, lights off, staring at his phone. He had drafted a message to Rasheeda at least 10 times, but couldn't bring himself to send it. He scrolled through their old photos, birthdays, anniversaries. That vacation they took last year where she actually smiled again. He muttered to himself, "Why, I keep messing up the same way." Man, his phone buzzed again. This time it was a message from Jasmine. "You okay?" "I didn't mean for this to happen." Kirk threw the phone across the bed. "Nah, you meant it," he whispered. "You always mean it." At the same time, Joc was on his balcony, staring at the water with a drink in his hand. Kendra came out quietly, wrapping a shawl around her shoulders. "You know this ain't over, right?" she said. Joc nodded slowly. "Yeah, I know." She sat beside him. "You think you did the right thing?" He looked down, twisting the glass in his hands. "I don't even know anymore. I thought I was protecting Rasheeda, but now it looked like I just destroyed everything." Kendra reached over, placing her hand on his. "You can't fix their marriage. You can only control yours. And right now, I need you to be my husband, not her hero." Joc sighed, the guilt heavy in his chest. "You right, baby. I got caught up. I hate watching people lie to themselves." Downstairs, the lobby filled with reporters who had somehow found the resort. Cameras flashed as they shouted questions. "Kirk, were you arrested? Is Rasheeda leaving you for good? Did Joc snitch for clout?" Security tried to clear them out, but the damage was already done. By noon, every gossip site in America had a headline about the Puerto Rico fight. Back in Atlanta, Rasheeda arrived at her boutique. Her mother, Miss Shirlene, was waiting for her inside. "Lord, girl, what happened now?" Shirlene asked as soon as she saw her. Rasheeda dropped her bag and leaned against the counter, tears in her eyes. "Mama, he did it again." Shirlene frowned. "Don't tell me Jasmine involved again." Rasheeda nodded. "Joc exposed him, in front of everybody. I didn't want to believe it, but there's pictures. I'm humiliated all over again." Shirlene shook her head. "Baby, I told you long ago. A man who cheats once will do it twice, 3 times, and more if you let him. You gotta decide if you done for real this time." Rasheeda wiped her eyes. I can't live like this. I gave him too many chances." That night, Kirk finally stepped out of his room. The crew followed him quietly as he walked along the boardwalk. He stopped at the edge, looking out over the water, his face hard but tired. A camera operator whispered, "You sure you want to film this?" Kirk nodded. "Yeah, go ahead. They already filming my downfall. Might as well show the truth to." He turned to the lens. "I messed up. Again. And I don't even know how to explain it no more. People think it's easy being on TV, living this life. But all it do is show your worst side to the world. I love my wife. Man, I love my family. But somehow I keep doing things that hurt them. And I don't even got a reason anymore." His voice broke slightly, as he added, "I don't blame Rasheeda if she never talks to me again. I deserve that." In the background, the ocean crashed against the rocks. The crew stayed silent. Later that night, Joc decided to confront Kirk one last time before leaving. He knocked on Kirk's door, and for a long minute there was no answer. Then the door opened, and Kirk stood there, eyes red, expression blank. Joc started quietly. "Look, man, we gotta talk. This can't be how we leave it." Kirk's tone was flat. "Ain't nothin' left to say, bro." "Nah," Joc said, stepping inside. "You think I enjoyed calling you out like that? I didn't. I've been sitting with it for weeks, hoping you'd just come clean to her. I told you before, this stuff always finds its way out. You could have told her yourself." Kirk glared at him. You act like you perfect. You done messed up more than anybody on this show? Joc nodded slowly. You right, I ain't perfect. I made mistakes. Hurt people too, but I'm trying to do better. I ain't the same dude I used to be, and I thought maybe you were trying to. Guess I was wrong. The words hung in the air for a long time. Kirk finally said, You ain't my judge, Joc. Joc's eyes hardened. No, but I ain't your cover-up man either. He turned to leave. Kirk's voice stopped him. You think you did something noble, huh? You think you a hero now? Joc didn't turn around. Nah, heroes don't end up in handcuffs. Outside, Kendra was waiting in the hallway. When Joc came out, she linked her arm through his and whispered, Let's just go home. He nodded, and they walked off together, leaving Kirk alone again. 2 days later, the entire cast was back in Atlanta. Production called for an emergency meeting at the studio. Everyone showed up except Rasheeda. The room was tense. The executive producer stood at the front. We're all aware of the situation. He began. We've reviewed the footage, and while this will make great television, we can't ignore the legal mess it's caused. Kirk and Joc, you'll both be suspended for 2 weeks while we sort this out. Joc leaned back, muttering, Figures. Kirk said nothing, just kept staring at the table. Kendra looked relieved, but also angry. So that's it, no counseling, no help, just a suspension. The producer shrugged. It's a reality show, Kendra, not a therapy session. Meanwhile, at Frost Bistro, Rasheeda sat with her lawyer. We gonna go through with the separation paperwork? He asked. Rasheeda stared at the table, her voice quiet. I don't know yet. I love him, but I can't keep forgiving the same man for the same pain. The lawyer nodded. Take your time, but whatever you decide, make sure it's for you, not for the cameras. That evening, Kirk came back to Atlanta He drove straight from the airport to the house. It was dark, but her car wasn't in the driveway. Inside, everything felt colder than he remembered. Her clothes were gone from the closet. The framed photos on the hallway wall were missing too. He sat on the couch, head in his hands, whispering her name like maybe she could still hear him somewhere. Later that night, he found one note on the kitchen counter in her handwriting. I can't keep fighting for us alone. You need to figure out who you are without the lies. The camera zoomed in on his face as he read it, the pain visible even without words. Outside, thunder rolled through the city, echoing like fate. Meanwhile, fans online were losing their minds. Clips from the Puerto Rico fight were hitting every gossip page. Someone had even leaked unseen footage of the police arriving. Viewers froze frames, zoomed in, made theories. Hashtags like hashtag Frost Breakdown, hashtag Kirk vs JOC Part 2, and hashtag RASHEEDA Leaves, again, trended for days. And hashtag RASHEEDA Leaves, again, trended for days. Confessionals filmed later that week. Carly Red summed it up best. Puerto Rico was supposed to be about peace, but chilly. It turned into war, and I don't even know if this group can come back from it. By the end of the week, the network released a teaser for the next episode. Slow-motion clips of the fight. Rasheeda crying at the airport, Kirk looking out over the ocean, Joc being handcuffed, Kendra screaming for him to stop. The screen went black with bold white letters. The fallout continues. And as the promo music faded, one thing was clear. This wasn't just another scandal. This was the kind of storm that could end relationships, careers, and friendships forever. By the time the teaser hit TV, Atlanta was already buzzing. Fans flooded Frost Bistro, taking pictures outside, tagging Rasheeda on Instagram with captions like Queen stay strong and you deserve better. Her name became a rallying cry for every woman who'd ever been cheated on in public. Meanwhile, Kirk couldn't even walk into a gas station without hearing whispers. People were filming him from across aisles, shouting "Where Jasmine at?" just to get a reaction. Back at VH1 headquarters, the executives were thrilled with the numbers. The Puerto Rico footage had broken records. This is the highest engagement we've seen since season 8, one executive said. People can't stop talking about it, but the producers were split. One of them argued, we're playing with people's real lives here. Rasheeda's humiliated. Kirk's losing it. Joc's reputation's tanked. At what point do we stop? Another shrugged. When it stops making money. A week passed before Kirk finally tried to reach Rasheeda again. He called her over and over. No answer. He showed up at Frost Bistro, but she refused to come out from the back office. So he did something desperate. He asked for permission to film a public apology scene. The network loved the idea. Redemption always sells, they said. They set it up like a confessional, but it was really just Kirk sitting alone at their restaurant. Cameras rolling, tears barely held back. Rasheeda, he said quietly. I know you probably don't want to hear nothing from me right now, but I need to say this anyway. I love you. I've done a lot of dumb things in my life, but loosen, that's something I can't live with." His voice broke. "You my wife, my partner, my best friend, and I'm sorry that I keep macking you question who I am. I ain't proud of that man I keep turning into." Outside, fans had gathered. They were watching through the windows, phones out, recording everything. Some cried, some clapped, but when the clip aired 2 nights later, the internet tore it apart. Some called it fake tears for ratings. Others said it was too little, too late. And somewhere in between the noise, Rasheeda watched silently from her office, her phone buzzing across town. Joc was doing his own damage control. He and Kendra filmed a couples therapy segment, sitting on a leather couch while a relationship counselor tried to mediate. "Why did you feel it was your responsibility to expose Kirk?" the counselor asked. Joc looked down, his voice low. "'Cause I've seen too many people get hurt from secrets. I thought I was helping, but now I realize I just added more pain." Kendra's tone was cold. "You didn't think about our marriage, though. You made a scene, got yourself handcuffed, and dragged me into it again." Joc exhaled, shaking his head. "I know, baby. I messed up. I just wanted the truth out." She looked at him sharply. "Truth without peace is just chaos." The room went quiet. Even the counselor looked shaken by that line. Later that week, rumors started spreading that Jasmine was planning to tell her side of the story in an exclusive interview. Social media caught fire instantly. Clips of her leaked interview teaser showed her sitting in a chair, eyes full of tears, saying, "I never wanted to be the villain in their story. I just wanted to be heard." The internet divided again. Some called her manipulative, others said she was brave for speaking up. When the full interview aired, Jasmine claimed Kirk had reached out first. "He called me," she said softly. "Said he wanted closure. I told him I didn't think that was a good idea, but he insisted it was just business. And yeah, we met at that villa, but it wasn't romantic. It just got twisted." She paused. "But when I saw how hurt Rasheeda was, I realized I should have never gone." The comments section exploded. Fans accused her of lying, of playing the victim. Others said she was being honest for once. Within hours, clips from the interview had millions of views. Rasheeda stayed silent. Kirk stayed quiet too, but inside, he was boiling. A few nights later, he showed up uninvited at a cast dinner that the network arranged to rebuild peace. Joc, Kendra, Carly, Erica, Mina, and Yandi were already there. The energy shifted the moment Kirk walked in. Everyone froze. Carly whispered, "Oh Lord, here we go again." Kirk sat down across from Joc, tension thick between them. "You got what you wanted, right?" Kirk said calmly. "Whole world think I'm trash now." Joc didn't look up. "I didn't make you do what you did, bro." Kirk smirked bitterly. "Nah, but you sure made sure everybody saw it." Kendra interrupted. "We not doing this again. We just started fixing things at home. I can't sit through another scene of y'all swinging on each other." Stevie J leaned back, smirking. "Man, just let them talk. It's good TV." Yandi shot him a look. "Ain't nothing funny about 2 black men destroying their families for ratings." The table went quiet again. Kirk finally said, "You know what hurts the most? I ain't even mad at Joc no more. I'm mad at myself. I gave him the truth to throw in my face, and I gave my wife one more reason to walk away." His voice cracked slightly. "I don't even know how to fix it no more." Joc finally looked at him. "You start by stopping the lies. Even the small ones. 'Cause that's how the big ones start." Kirk nodded slowly, staring at the table. "Maybe you right." The dinner ended quietly. No shouting, no plates flying, just a cold silence. As the cameras shut off, Carly whispered to Erica, "This show done turned into therapy with a liquor bill." Erica laughed softly. "Girl, therapy wish it paid this good." Later that night, Kirk drove home alone. He pulled into the driveway, and for the first time, Rasheeda's car was there. His heart jumped. He went inside slowly, calling out her name. "Sheeda." She was sitting on the couch, calm but serious. "You wanted to talk, right?" she said. Kirk nodded. Sitting across from her, she folded her arms. "I saw your little TV apology." Kirk looked down. "It wasn't for the cameras, it was for you." Rasheeda sighed. "You say that every time, and every time it feels less true." He leaned forward, desperation in his eyes. "I'm done with the lies. I swear, I'll do whatever it takes." She looked at him, expression tired. "You've been saying that for 10 years, Kirk. I love you, but I don't believe you anymore. Love ain't supposed to feel like this." His voice was soft. "You want me to leave?" She paused. "I want you to change, but if you can't, yeah, maybe you should." He sat there in silence, realizing this was the first time she'd ever said it like that. Final. After he left, The cameras followed him to his car. He sat inside for a long time, staring at the steering wheel, his reflection in the rearview mirror, a stranger to himself. Meanwhile, social media had already shifted its attention. New rumors suggested that VH1 was planning a special episode called The Fallout, Kirk and Joc Uncensored, featuring unseen footage from the Puerto Rico fight and new interviews. Fans were hyped. Blogs promised never-before-heard audio. The show hadn't even aired yet, and it was already trending #1 on Twitter. Back at the Frost house, Rasheeda sat alone in the living room, scrolling through comments under Kirk's apology video. Some were cruel, some were supportive, but one caught her eye. It read, "Sometimes forgiveness ain't weakness, it's freedom." She stared at that line for a while, then put her phone down. Outside, the rain started again, lightning flashed in the distance, and for the first time in days, she exhaled deeply. Whatever came next, she knew this storm wouldn't last forever, but the scars it left, those would take time to heal. 2 weeks passed. Atlanta felt colder than usual, though it wasn't the weather, it was the silence. No public statements from Kirk, no new Instagram posts from Rasheeda. Even Joc had gone quiet. The show's fans were restless, desperate for updates. Gossip blogs filled the void with theories. Some said Rasheeda filed for divorce. Others claimed Kirk checked into rehab for image recovery. The truth was quieter but heavier. Kirk had moved out of the house. He was staying in a short-term apartment near Buckhead, the kind of place with white walls and no warmth. Most nights he sat on the balcony, drink in hand, phone face down beside him. The noise of the city below didn't reach him anymore. He was living in a fog of regret, the kind that crept in slow and stayed like smoke. One night, he scrolled through his messages again, stopping at one from Jasmine. She had texted a single line days ago. "They made me look worse than I am." He didn't reply then, and he didn't now. Instead, he opened his notes app and started typing. Not a text, not a post, just words spilling out. "I messed up. I lost everything that mattered." And the world got to watch it in high definition. Across town, Rasheeda sat at Frost Bistro with her mother, looking over invoices. Business was steady, but she barely cared. Looking over invoices. Business was steady, but she barely cared. She was still moving through the days like someone half awake. "You need rest," baby Charlene said. "You run in this place, doing interviews, pretending like you fine when you not." Rasheeda forced a small smile. "Work helps me forget. Work don't heal heartbreak," her mother replied. "And you can't pour into a business when your heart empty." Before Rasheeda could answer, her phone buzzed. A notification from VH1. New footage from the Puerto Rico trip was about to air. She sighed. "I can't escape this thing. It's like they feed off my pain." Charlene nodded. "Then stop letting them eat." That night, the new episode premiered. It was worse than anyone expected. They aired unseen angles of the fight, slow motion, dramatic music, Kendra screaming, cops shouting, Kirk yelling back at producers. Every second was chaos. Then came the confessional clips. Joc admitting he'd been the one to leak part of the story to the press to force the truth out. Kirk breaking down in tears. And finally, Rasheeda packing her suitcase, whispering, "I just want peace." Within minutes, social media exploded again. "Rasheeda deserves better" trended for hours. Memes of Kirk's face flooded time. Some fans defended him, saying he was being emotionally destroyed on national TV. Others said it was karma. The next morning, Kirk woke up to a voicemail from Stevie J. "Bro, you need to talk. The network's spinning this crazy. They mackin' Joc the hero now. You look like the villain again. You can't let that be the last word." He called back. "What I'm supposed to do? Man, I said my piece." Stevie replied, "Nah, you gotta show him a new piece. Sit down with the press. Do an interview. Not crying, not begging, just real. Tell your truth before somebody else does." Kirk hesitated, but Stevie was right. The narrative was out of his hands. So he agreed. The network arranged an exclusive interview, studio lights, somber music, one-on-one format. "People say you keep repeating the same mistakes." The interviewer began. Kirk took a long breath. "They right, I ain't gon' lie. I thought being honest one time fixed everything. But it don't. You gotta keep choosing to be better every day. And I didn't. I got lazy with my loyalty. And I lost the only person who ever believed in me after I gave her every reason not to." When asked about Joc, Kirk looked down. "He my brother, but he crossed a line. I get why he did it. But some things don't need an audience. We could have fixed that behind doors." When asked about Jasmine, his tone hardened. "I wish her well, but that chapter dead. I ain't revisiting that ever again." The clip went viral within hours. People were shocked at how composed he sounded, almost too calm. Comments poured in, some sympathetic, others cynical. But Rasheeda didn't watch it live. She found out later through a friend who texted, "You see Kirk trying to be deep now." She just replied, "I hope he means it." 2 days later, VH1 announced they were filming a reunion special. Everyone in the same room again. Kirk, Joc, Rasheeda, Kendra, even Jasmine. The internet lost its mind. Ticket requests flooded in for the live audience taping. Producers called it the reckoning. On the day of filming, the studio lights were blinding. Everyone looked tense. The host started gently. "There's been a lot of hurt, a lot of public embarrassment. How are you all feeling now?" Rasheeda spoke first. "Tired. That's how I feel. Tired of being the strong one? Tired of forgiving what ain't changing." The audience applauded softly. Kirk sat still, eyes down. Joc nodded in agreement. "We all tired, but I think we learned something this time. Maybe pain gotta teach it the hard way." Then Jasmine spoke, her voice small but steady. "I never wanted this to get this far. I didn't mean to hurt nobody. I wish I could take back everything." The room went quiet. Rasheeda looked at her, emotion flickering in her eyes. "You can't take back the past, Jasmine, but you can stop reliving it, for both of us." Kirk looked at Rasheeda, his eyes glassy. "Does that mean we done?" She paused. "It means we not going backward anymore." The host leaned forward. "So where do you go from here?" Rasheeda smiled sadly. "Forward, even if that means apart." The audience clapped softly, some wiping tears. Kirk nodded, whispering, "If that's what it take for her to be happy, I'll take it." After the taping, the cast gathered backstage. Joc approached Kirk quietly. "You good?" Kirk shrugged. "I don't know, man, but maybe for once, I ain't trying to fake it." Joc smiled faintly. "That's a start." Hours later, the episode aired unedited. Fans flooded the internet again, calling it the most emotional moment in love and hip-hop history. Commentators praised Rasheeda's strength. Memes of Kirk's final line, "I ain't trying to fake it no more," spread everywhere. But beyond the screens, the story didn't fade. Paparazzi caught Kirk weeks later dropping flowers off at Frost Bistro late at night. He left them at the door, no note. Rasheeda saw them the next morning and didn't move them. She just stared at them for a while, then whispered to herself, "Maybe that's enough for now." That same day, Joc and Kendra filmed their final confessional for the season. Kendra smiled at the camera. "If Puerto Rico taught us anything, it's that peace ain't found in paradise. It's found when you finally stop lying to yourself." As the camera panned out, the sun set over Atlanta, the skyline glowing gold. For the first time in weeks, nobody was yelling, nobody was fighting, and the storm that started in Puerto Rico finally began to settle into silence. 3 months later, the Puerto Rico scandal was still echoing across Atlanta. Though the chaos had turned quieter, heavier, more personal, the network had squeezed every ounce of drama from its specials, interviews, leaked confessionals, but the real story was what happened off camera. The cameras had stopped rolling, but the lives behind them hadn't. Kirk was rebuilding, or trying to. The apartment in Buckhead still felt like a punishment. Most of his nights were silent, except for the hum of the refrigerator and the muffled sounds of traffic outside. He'd started going to therapy quietly, privately, something he hadn't told anyone about. The therapist was an older man who didn't know or care about reality TV. At first, Kirk tried to perform like he always did, talking in polished sentences, dodging his guilt with humor. The therapist just stared at him and said, "You talk like a man explaining his mistakes to a camera, not to himself." And for the first time in years, Kirk didn't know what to say back. On the other side of the city, Rasheeda had thrown herself into work again. Frost Bistro was thriving, and her boutique was busier than ever. She'd turned her pain into something productive, which had always been her way. But even her staff could feel that something was different. The laughter that used to echo through the place had turned quieter, less frequent. One of her employees, Tasha, tried to lighten the mood one morning, saying, "Boss lady, you know half the city rooting for you. They say you the definition of strength." Rasheeda smiled softly. "Strength just mean you good at hiding the parts that still hurt." The new season of Love and Hip Hop, Atlanta, was in pre-production, and the producers were desperate to get her back on screen. They offered her solo scenes, a rebranding arc, even a spin-off offer focused on her businesses and single life. She hadn't agreed to anything yet. "I ain't sure I want to live my pain on camera again," she told Carly over lunch. Carly, sipping her drink, said, "Girl, they all do. That's how we eat." Rasheeda laughed quietly but didn't answer. Joc, meanwhile, had taken a different route. He and Kendra were doing better, or at least pretending to. They'd started a podcast called Truth Over Tea, where they talked about relationships, loyalty, and what they called the art of not losing your mind on camera. Their first few episodes went viral, especially the one where Joc admitted, "Puerto Rico broke me, but it fixed something too. It showed me what not to do again." Kendra added, "Sometimes the fight ain't with the person, it's with the version of yourself you keep protecting." That line hit everywhere. People quoted it, posted it, stitched it on TikTok. Even Rasheeda reposted it quietly one night with a simple caption, "Facts." But the calm didn't last long. One Saturday afternoon, Kirk showed up at Frost Bistro without warning. He didn't come inside. He just stood outside, watching through the glass as Rasheeda laughed with her staff. She noticed him after a few minutes. Their eyes met, and for a second, everything went still. He didn't wave, didn't move closer, just nodded, then turned and walked away. Later that night, she found a small envelope at the door. Inside was a handwritten letter. "Sheeda, I know I can't fix what I broke, but I'm trying to be the man you used to believe I could be. Not for the cameras. For me. If you ever want to talk, I'll be here, not as Kirk Frost the headline, but as Kirk the fool who finally figured it out too late." She read it twice, folded it carefully, and put it in her purse. She didn't reply. The next week, producers began contacting everyone again for the reunion follow-up special. The ratings were too good to ignore. This time, they promised it would be more reflective, less chaotic. Nobody believed that, but everyone agreed to show up, except Rasheeda. She sent a statement instead. "Some stories don't need another episode. They need an ending." The night of the taping, Kirk sat on the couch next to Joc and Kendra. The host asked, "How's life now that the dust settled?" Joc chuckled, "Man, it ain't settled. It's just quieter. That's worse sometimes." Kirk nodded. "Yeah, quiet can be loud when you ain't proud of yourself." Kirk nodded. "Yeah, quiet can be loud when you ain't proud of yourself." The host turned to him. "If Rasheeda's watching right now, what would you say?" Kirk exhaled, his voice calm. "Nothing rehearsed this time. I'd just say, thank you, for staying as long as you did, for believing in me when I didn't, and for finally walking away. 'Cause that made me look in the mirror for the first time in years." The audience went silent. Even Joc lowered his head. After the taping, Kirk walked out of the studio alone. Outside, the air was cool, the city lights sharp against the night sky. His phone buzzed one new message. It was from Rasheeda. 3 words, "Keep going, Kirk." He stared at it for a long time, then smiled faintly. The first real smile he'd had in months. Weeks later, footage surfaced of Rasheeda attending a charity gala. She looked radiant, confident, free. When reporters asked if she and Kirk were back together, she just said, "Some stories don't need a sequel, they just need peace." And yet, in that same week, fans spotted Kirk at the gala too, standing at the back of the room, keeping his distance. Not trying to steal her spotlight. When the cameras caught him clapping quietly as she spoke, the internet went wild again. Headlines screamed, "Kirk Frost, still cheering for Rasheeda, hope or heartbreak." But behind the noise, there was something quieter happening. A strange, fragile peace neither of them had known before. He wasn't chasing, she wasn't running. They were just two people finally letting silence speak. In one of the final scenes, filmed for the upcoming season, Rasheeda stood on the Frost Bistro rooftop at sunset. The skyline glowed, her hair catching the orange light. She looked straight into the camera and said, "Puerto Rico taught us all something. It taught me that love ain't supposed to break you, it's supposed to build you. And if it can't do that, it's okay to walk away and still wish somebody well." As the credits rolled, the screen faded to black over the sound of waves. Like a memory still echoing from that night on the beach, 2 men in handcuffs, 2 women screaming, and a love story that finally learned how to end without destroying everything around it. Months passed, and the Puerto Rico scandal slowly faded from headlines, replaced by newer gossip and fresher feuds. Yet, for those who lived it, the echo never fully left. Atlanta had moved on, but in quiet corners, the bistro, the studio, the recording rooms, the memory of that night still hovered like smoke. Rasheeda had grown softer in her silence. She smiled again, but it was different now, steadier, calmer. Interviews called her the comeback queen, and her new clothing line, aptly titled Redefined, was flying off shelves. Every piece carried a hidden message stitched into the fabric. Small words like peace, resilience, and rebirth. She didn't talk much about Kirk anymore, but when someone brought him up in interviews, she answered with grace. Every chapter got a purpose, she said once, even the painful ones. Meanwhile, Kirk had found new rhythms. He wasn't chasing fame or fixing his image. Instead, he'd started managing a small roster of young Atlanta artist kids who reminded him of who he used to be before the show, before the mess. One of them, a 19-year-old rapper named Dreeton, said in a vlog, Kirk don't talk much, but when he does, he say real stuff, like, "Don't confuse attention with respect." That line stuck with me. His reputation had shifted. People still whispered, but now the tone was different. There was sympathy in it, understanding, even forgiveness. On one quiet Friday afternoon, Kirk pulled up outside Frost Bistro. He hadn't been there in months. He wasn't sure if he was ready, but something inside told him it was time. He walked in quietly, the familiar scent of grilled food and citrus candles wrapping around him like memory. The staff noticed him first. A few nodded politely, unsure how to react. Then she appeared, Rasheeda, coming from the back office, clipboard in hand. She stopped when she saw him. The air froze for a heartbeat. Kirk took off his hat, speaking low. "Hey." She set the clipboard down slowly. "Hey." They stood there for a moment, the hum of conversation filling the silence between them. Finally, Kirk said, "I just wanted to see how you doing. That's all." Rasheeda nodded, crossing her arms gently. "I'm good, better. Actually, I can tell," Kirk said, smiling faintly. "You look happy." "Happiness took work," she replied. "But yeah, I found it again." He nodded, eyes soft. "I'm glad." She hesitated, then asked quietly, "And you?" He exhaled. "I'm learnin'. Took me long enough to figure out peace don't come from fixing. What's gone it come from not breakin' the next thing you touch." For a moment, they both laughed softly, not bitterly, but like two people finally understanding the same truth at the same time. A waiter came over awkwardly. "Table for two?" he asked. They both smiled politely, shaking their heads. "Nah," Kirk said. "I won't stay long." Rasheeda nodded. "Come by the bistro's charity event next week. We raisin' money for single moms. Could use some good energy." Kirk grinned. "I'll be there." As he turned to leave, she called out, "Kirk." He looked back. "Thank you for not giving up on yourself." He smiled quietly. "Thank you for makin' me realize I had to stop." Later that night, Rasheeda stood on her balcony, city lights flickering below. She scrolled through her messages. No drama, no headlines, just peace. She looked out at the skyline and whispered to herself, "This what healing feels like." The next day, Joc and Kendra recorded another podcast episode. This one was titled "Closure Ain't Always Goodbye." Joc said, "You know, sometimes peace look like walking away. And sometimes it look like sitting across from somebody you thought you'd never face again and realizing you ain't mad no more." Kendra smiled. "Closure ain't about them, it's about you." Fans flooded the comments with hearts, saying, "They speaking truth again." As for Kirk and Rasheeda, they did attend the charity event together the following week. Not as husband and wife, not as enemies, just as two people who'd shared a long story and finally learned how to end it right. When they took a photo together at the event, standing side by side but not touching, the caption read, "Growth looks good on everyone." The image went viral again, but this time the comments were different. No anger, no mockery, just respect. They both evolved. One fan wrote, "You can tell they finally free." And maybe that was the real ending. Not a reunion, not revenge, not another scandal, but peace. The last shot of the season showed them both driving separate cars down the same Atlanta street, the skyline glowing gold ahead. The narrator's voice played softly. In the end, Puerto Rico wasn't the breaking point, it was the turning point. Sometimes love don't survive the storm, but the people do. And that's enough. The camera panned up toward the sky, and the screen faded to black as the sound of waves returned familiar, steady, and endless, like the echo of a lesson finally learned. Weeks rolled into months, and Atlanta settled into an uneasy calm. The chaos had burned out, leaving behind quiet moments that no camera could ever capture. The world had moved on from Puerto Rico, but for Kirk, Rasheeda, Joc, and Kendra, the aftermath was still shaping who they were becoming. Spring sunlight stretched across the city. The air felt lighter, almost forgiving. Frost Bistro had expanded, new decor, new menu, same heartbeat. Customers lined up outside, eager for a taste of what they'd watched survive every headline. Rasheeda walked through the kitchen with her tablet, giving quiet instructions, her voice steady but warm. There was strength in her now, the kind that came from rebuilding after everything collapsed. The network had begged her to film another season, to show the next chapter. She turned them down at first, but when they offered full creative control, she agreed on one condition: no forced drama, no manipulation, no rehashing of Kirk's mistakes. "If I do this," she said, "it's gonna be about growth, not gossip." Production reluctantly agreed. The new season opened with Rasheeda hosting a women's empowerment brunch at Frost Bistro. The room was filled with laughter, soft music, and Atlanta's most powerful women entrepreneurs, artists, mothers. She stood before them in a soft lavender suit, speaking with calm conviction. "We spend too long trying to prove we stronger than pain," she said. "But real strength ain't in surviving storms, it's in choosing peace when you could choose revenge." The crowd applauded. Backstage, Kirk stood quietly watching. He wasn't part of the event, just a guest, standing near the doorway, clapping softly when she finished. Later, when most people had left, he approached her with a small smile. "You really did that," he said. She looked at him, surprised but not guarded. "Thank you. I didn't think you'd come." "I almost didn't," he admitted. "But I wanted to see you in your element again. Reminds me why I fell for you in the first place." She smiled faintly. "We both different people now, Kirk." "Yeah," he said quietly, "but I still respect the woman you became." A soft pause followed. Then she asked, You stay in Atlanta?" He nodded. "Yeah, managing a few artists. Working on my label again, but slower this time. No shortcuts. No headlines." "That's good," she said. "You sound grounded." "Maybe that's what happens when you lose everything that don't matter." They laughed softly, no tension, no bitterness, just two people standing in the same piece, for once. Later that week, Kirk visited his therapist again. "So, how's forgiveness coming along?" the man asked. Kirk smiled faintly. "Better than I thought. Turns out, forgiveness ain't for the person you wronged, it's for the person you keep blaming in the mirror." The therapist nodded. "Sounds like you're starting to like that man again." "Not yet," Kirk said. "But I'm starting to understand him." Across town, Joc and Kendra's podcast had grown into something bigger than either expected. Brands were sponsoring it, colleges were quoting it, and fans called them the realest couple on the mic. One episode, titled "When Pain Becomes Purpose," went viral. Joc said, "We went through a public storm, but you know what kept us together? Honesty. Not the kind you perform, but the kind that hurts before it heals." Kendra added, "We stopped defending our image and started defending our peace." Meanwhile, Jasmine had quietly disappeared from public life. She moved out of Atlanta, deleted her social media, and started working at a community center in Savannah. Someone from the production team ran into her months later. When they asked if she'd ever return to the show, she smiled gently and said, "No, I'm done being somebody else's storyline." The city was calmer now. The cast members crossed paths, sometimes at events, in studios, at restaurants, and there were no arguments, no cameras chasing them for drama. It almost felt unreal. One humid night in July, Frost Bistro hosted its 5-year anniversary celebration. The place glowed with fairy lights, laughter spilling out into the streets. Rasheeda stood on the rooftop terrace, looking over the city. Kirk approached quietly, holding 2 glasses of sparkling cider. "To 5 years," he said softly. She smiled. "And to peace." They clinked glasses. No promises, no reconciliation speech, just shared quiet between two people who'd finally outgrown the storm. A photographer nearby captured the moment to former lovers, smiling beneath the Atlanta skyline. The picture spread online again, but this time, the captions were different. "Maturity looks good on them. No scandal, just peace." As the night wound down, Kirk stood at the edge of the rooftop, looking over the lights below. Rasheeda joined him one last time. "You ever think about how it all started?" she asked. He nodded slowly. "Yeah, and I think about how it ended too. But you know what, I'm grateful for both. 'Cause the same storm that broke us made us who we are." She smiled. "Maybe that's the point." Downstairs, music swelled, laughter rose, and life kept moving forward. The scene faded to the sound of clinking glasses and quiet laughter as the narrator's voice returned one final time. In love and hip-hop, every story starts with chaos, but it's the calm after that shows who really survives it. Kirk and Rasheeda learned that peace ain't about the past, it's about what you choose next. The screen faded to black, the sound of ocean waves returning one last time. Soft and steady like closure whispered beneath the noise of fame. Late summer settled over Atlanta with that slow, golden kind of heat that made the air hum. Everything had changed since that night in Puerto Rico, but some things like the quiet rhythm of the city. The gossip whispered through barbershops and salons still carried traces of it. The scandal had turned into history, but it had also turned into legend. People still said, "You remember when Kirk and Joc went off in Puerto Rico?" Like it was folklore. The show was entering a new season, one built less on fights and more on evolution. The producers called it Love and Hip Hop. Atlanta rebuilt for the first time. It didn't open with shouting or champagne thrown across a table. Instead, it opened with Rasheeda walking through Frost Bistro at sunrise, checking on her staff, smiling quietly. Narration played in her voice. People always say the drama made the show, but maybe it was the healing that made us human. Then came a cut to Kirk, coaching his young artists in a small studio. His voice was calm but sharp. Ain't about clout, it's about legacy. Anybody can trend. Not everybody can last. The new kids listened like he was a preacher. Off camera, Kirk and Rasheeda still texted now and then. Nothing deep, just short, polite messages. Heard your event went great or saw your artist drop his track. Congrats. No anger, no apologies, just mutual respect. And somehow, that was enough. The network arranged a cast retreat later that year, not in Puerto Rico this time, but in the mountains of North Georgia. A cabin, a fireplace, no production lights. The goal was reflection. Rasheeda arrived first, wearing a soft denim jacket, her hair loose, her smile small but real. Joc and Kendra arrived next, holding hands. Kirk came last, quiet as ever. When they all sat down for dinner, there was a strange comfort, like everyone had survived a war together and didn't need to talk about it anymore. The producers filmed just a few clips. No scripts, no drama cues. Just conversation. Rasheeda turned to Kirk across the table. You know what's wild? How we lived our worst moments in front of millions, and somehow, we still here. Kirk nodded. Yeah, guess that means we stronger than the story. Joc smiled. Nah, it means y'all finally stopped letting the story tell you. Kendra lifted her glass. To growth, to forgiveness, and to minding your business next time. Everyone laughed. The mood was light, for once. Later that night, when the others had gone to bed, Kirk sat alone outside the cabin, staring at the stars. Rasheeda came out, wrapping a blanket around herself. You still don't sleep much, huh? He smiled faintly. Not when my brain won't shut up. You think too much about the past, she said. Yeah, but it's quieter now, he replied. Used to be noise, now it's just lessons. She looked up at the stars. I used to think closure meant we had to fix everything. Now I get it, tit. Just means you stop trying to make sense of what already ended. He nodded slowly. That's real. They sat there in silence for a while, the firelight flickering against the porch railing. The sound of cicadas thick in the trees. When she finally stood to go back inside, Kirk said softly, You know, Sheeda, I still thank God you walked away when you did. She turned back, surprised. Why? 'Cause if you hadn't, I'd still be stuck in the man who broke you. Her eyes softened. You not that man anymore. He smiled, small but genuine. No, I'm not. The cameras caught it, the unspoken forgiveness between two people who didn't need to explain it. The editors didn't add music or filters, they let the quiet play. Months later, the episode aired. Fans flooded social media, calling it the most mature love and hip-hop moment ever. Comments poured in. No screaming, no chaos, just healing. This is what growth looks like. Kirk and Rasheeda finally got peace, back in real life. That peace held. Rasheeda started mentoring young women in business, launching a foundation for single mothers. Kirk hosted workshops for independent artists, teaching them how not to repeat his mistakes in music or in life. Joc and Kendra renewed their vows in a private ceremony. No cameras allowed. Even Jasmine, now living quietly in Savannah, sent a handwritten note that said, I'm happy for all of you. The final episode of the season didn't end with a party or a fight. It ended with a montage, Rasheeda opening the doors to Frost Bistro at dawn, Kirk smiling as one of his artists performed live for the first time, Joc and Kendra laughing on their podcast, and the city skyline glowing gold. As the sun rose over Atlanta, Rasheeda's voice played once more. We went through the kind of pain that don't just go away, it teaches you. And if you listen close enough, you realize the storm wasn't meant to destroy you. It was meant to clear the air. The camera lingered on her face for a few seconds, the peace unmistakable. Then it faded into black, the sound of ocean waves playing again, like the memory of Puerto Rico still whispering through the distance, not as chaos this time, but as closure. And for the first time in love and hip-hop history, the drama didn't end in shouting, it ended in silence, the kind that finally sounded like freedom. Autumn came to Atlanta like a sigh, slow, warm, and steady. For the first time in years, the cast wasn't living from one crisis to the next. The cameras were gone, the producers had wrapped, and the city seemed to breathe differently. The stories had been told. The fights had played out. What was left now was real life, the kind that doesn't trend but matters more. Rasheeda had settled into a rhythm that didn't revolve around damage control. Frost Bistro had become a landmark. Tourists came to eat, locals came to stay. Her foundation for single mothers had just hosted its first mentorship gala, where she gave a speech that left the entire room quiet. The world saw me break, but what they didn't see was how I built myself again brick by brick, not to prove anyone wrong, but to remind myself I was right to start over. People stood and clapped for 2 full minutes. Her home was different too. Lighter, cleaner. Peace had a sound, Natha.